Kyle here with my video journal. We're still here in Arizona, Fort Hauchuca, working on MIBOLC, and we've been here for many months now with about a month and a half left, I guess. Probably the most biggest thing we've gone through since the last time I did this was our 10-hour intelligence challenge, which I think went better than one expects from a 10-hour test. But I thought I would talk about some things I thought about it and some ways to prepare for it. Some things I wish I would have done a little bit better on the exam, but I think it turned out okay. So you don't want to fail it because you have to take it again, and that's another 10 hours of your life. But it was the quickest 10 hours of my life. You think you got all this time, but it passes super fast. So some of my hints about it: you shouldn't have to worry about it too much, because they do all that they can, the cadre, to make sure you understand what you're doing before you get there. Definitely, if you have any questions over any of the materials, you need to ask them. Really, it's just mission analysis all over again by yourself, doing all the things that you've been doing in class. So it's the IPB process through the whole thing. The only thing you're not doing is briefing verbally. So it's like your slides you'll make in class that you've done several times, and all the acetates you make, but it is you yourself doing it. So you need to understand what goes on those slides that you're handwriting for this challenge, and all those acetates which you are drawing just like you did for class. So if you're not familiar with those things, and you've had plenty of opportunities to do it by your Intel challenge, make sure you're asking questions. But some things I think would help, and of course they tell you that, but make sure you read everything carefully with a highlighter. Make sure you pay attention to little details. It is more than anything a reading comprehension test, because you are reading through all this stuff and you need to plug it in where you're supposed to plug it in on the rest of your packet that you're filling out. But a couple things that I don't think I paid attention to, that in hindsight I wish I would have paid a little bit better attention to, was they give you your PIRs, so the priority intelligence requirements, in your packet, so you don't have to make those up, you have them. But you don't really plug them in until later on in the packet. So I made a lot of my NAIs before we got back to the PIRs, and by that point my NAIs didn't really line up very well with my PIRs. So I would have liked to have kept my PIRs in mind while making my NAIs. And I know it sounds like a bunch of acronyms. If you don't understand those, you will, but I just wish I had to make a ton of NAIs to then connect with my PIRs a little bit better later on in the exam. So I wish I would have kept them in mind when I was doing that part. The same, kind of along the same lines as your mission, the threats mission and the friendly mission is given into you. You don't have to make any of that up. And the end state. And I wish I would have kept that in mind when I was writing the purpose and task and purpose for different parts of the exam. So you can make up the task and purpose a lot of times, but I think it would have been better to connect it with the overall mission which was given to me, and end state which was given to me. So I kind of just made them up more than connected them, which I think was still fine, but I would have liked to have had them connected a little bit smoother and a little bit better. The biggest problem, they say, with the Intel challenge is just time management. So you don't want to get stuck doodling on your acetate or working too long on any one thing and have blank stuff at the end, because some of those last things, your information collection matrix, your information information collection synchronization matrix. Those things count for a lot of points, and if you leave those to the last minute, you run out of time. That's a ton of points, so you don't want to miss them. So you need to manage your time well. Don't try to make it too flowery. Just fill out the information you need to. And yeah, there's a few things that I wish I would have understood beforehand a little bit more exactly what I needed to put there, because I feel like I spent too much time filling them out because I was still a little hazy on exactly what I needed to put there. So try to understand all the bits of mission analysis, the slides, what you need to put where, and very concise, because you don't want to waste time filling out too much or drawing too much on your acetate. You can be pretty minimum on a lot of that. So yeah, you want to manage your time well. You don't want to leave anything blank. Stuff you want to make sure you have with you is, of course, your map markers, and they'll tell you all this. Drawing template for your units, highlighters, mechanical pencils, lead for your mechanical pencils. I threw a pack of mechanical pencil erasers in, which I had to replace 2 erasers during the challenge because I erased so much. So you could probably count on that same thing as having to write/erase a lot. Another thing, I didn't take tape, but they had a lot of tape in the classroom, but in my mind I was thinking if they didn't have all that tape, we kind of would have been up the creek without a paddle, because you tape all that acetate on your map, and then it ends up looking like a big craft, because, I mean, it essentially is, because their acetates are hinged on there, different directions, and it's all together in one thing when you're done. So if we would have ran out of tape, that might have been a problem, so maybe extra tape could have been nice. But yeah, I don't think it'd be helpful to give any details about the exam beyond that. But yeah, they'll make sure you know what you're doing up to that point. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, you need to ask questions. Understand all the products you're making, not just the maps and the acetates, but the slides as well. I think I, in class, worked more on the maps and the acetate, and I actually never was involved in making the slides because we were always working on them as a group. And I think I could tell that by the time I was working on the challenge, because I was still, again, like I said, hazy on exactly the information that went in particular boxes, so really understand the slides. So yeah, that's all I have for that. The biggest event ahead is now we're going to work on the rest of the MDFP process. Again, the IPB was the biggest part, and our biggest part here in MIBOLC, which is step 2 of the DMP process, which is a 7-step process. And so we're going to go through the rest of it now. But the rest of it is not the biggest part for MI officers. A big event that's ahead is BOLCs, which I actually don't know too much about, but we'll find out about it as we get there. So anyway, have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll talk about them. Talk to you later. Bye.